You don't have the authority to pull something like this, Brendan barked, his voice trembling as he watched Talia calmly lay the final document on the table. I have 11.6% of the shareholder vote, she replied, her tone steady as steel, and I'm calling for your removal, effective immediately. The boardroom fell silent, jaws clenched, as the woman they once ignored took control of the entire room. At 9 p.m. sharp, the glass doors of Novacor Systems whispered open as Talia Monroe stepped inside with her mop bucket and a rhythm only she understood. The tech giant's downtown Austin headquarters was everything you'd expect from a billion-dollar firm: white oak floors that gleamed under LED panels, polished concrete walls with minimalist design, and a two-story living moss wall that screamed eco-conscious innovation. By day, this place buzzed with fast-talking executives, open-concept brainstorms, and startup energy in designer sneakers. But by night, it belonged to Talia. And no one even noticed. Wearing her standard-issue gray janitorial uniform, hair coiled into a simple bun, and AirPods tucked in with no sound playing, she moved through the silent atrium like clockwork. Most nights she didn't need music. The silence spoke louder. Sometimes she'd hear laughter floating from the upper floors where a few execs lingered over whiskey and final edits to a pitch deck. Sometimes she caught bits of conversations she wasn't meant to hear, how they trim fat by Q3 or relocate back-end teams to countries where labor came cheap. No one acknowledged her. Some muttered thanks, sweetheart, or evening, girl, without ever glancing at her name badge. They didn't care that it read Talia. To them, she was background. Furniture. A shadow moving with a mop. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Talia Monroe held a master's degree in finance from the University of Texas, graduated top 10% of her class. She'd once interned at a hedge fund, could read a balance sheet faster than most of the guys on the 18th floor, and had a near photographic memory for financial discrepancies. But instead of a corner office, she scrubbed theirs. She didn't land here by accident. She chose it. Chose silence. Chose invisibility. Because Talia wasn't here to climb a ladder. She was here to dismantle the whole damn thing. 26 years ago, her mother Evelyn Monroe had worked for this same company, long before it rebranded itself into a sleek tech empire. Back then, it was just Monroe Data Systems, a modest business with big dreams and no soul. Evelyn had given everything to it. She never missed a shift. Ran the facilities team with dignity, brought in birthday cakes, checked on employees when they stayed too late. And when cancer came, fast and cruel, Novacor offered nothing. No paid leave. No health support. Just a cold suggestion: resign quietly. Evelyn died in a two-bedroom duplex on the east side, still wearing her company vest folded on the edge of the couch. Her final paycheck was $432. And a company-branded water bottle. Talia remembered holding that check. Remembered the way the HR email started with "We regret to inform," like her mother was a line item, not a life. That's when she made a promise. Not revenge. Clarity. She would walk back through these doors under their terms, not hers. So she used her middle name, applied through a temp agency, gave a dated address, and never once mentioned her degrees. In the interview, the facilities manager didn't even ask about references. They just needed someone who could mop fast and not complain. And Talia? She didn't complain. She cleaned. Quietly. Relentlessly. With intention. For over a year, she tracked everything, picking up shredded documents from office bins, photographing retreat receipts that never made it to accounting, logging every time she heard Brendan Kessler, the hotshot new CFO, talk about squeezing the margins by cutting non-essential teams. She built a spreadsheet called Pulse. It had tabs for everything: names, policies, side deals, staff morale dips, internal emails saved by sympathetic IT workers. Her data wasn't guesses, it was airtight. Every file duplicated, encrypted, stored on 3 separate cloud servers under different names. And while she collected receipts, she was also quietly buying stock, pennies at first, then dollars, reinvesting bonuses, tips from side gigs, anything she could. Talia studied Novacore's voting structure. Found the overlooked shareholders, the ones who never bothered to attend annual meetings, who sold startups to Novacore and got pushed out, who had microstakes from long-forgotten employee incentives. She reached out quietly. Always the same line, "I'm just a janitor. But I think you'd want to see this." Some ignored her. Some laughed. But others, they listened. Especially the ones who'd been chewed up and spit out. There was Dr. Lena Chow, a former AI division head let go during restructuring. Jorge Fields, a cafeteria worker injured on the job and let go without benefits. Even Rhonda Bell, a retired project manager who told Talia, "Girl, I've been waiting years for someone to do this." By the end of her 12th month, Talia controlled 11.6% of the shareholder vote. Legally, that was leverage. Strategically, it was everything. But she still wasn't ready to move. Not yet. Because power is like momentum, it works best when you let the other side think you have none. She kept showing up. Quiet. Focused. She memorized patterns. Brendan always stayed late on Thursdays. Angela Park, head of compliance, always left files half-closed on her desk. The HR director talked too much on the phone near the break room. At 2 a.m., Talia sometimes sat on the edge of the rooftop parking lot with Luis, the night shift security guard who once told her, "They think we're ghosts." But ghosts? Ghosts see everything. They'd sip machine-brewed coffee and laugh. But Talia didn't joke much. Her mind was always 5 moves ahead. The turning point came on a Tuesday. She was wiping down the glass panels near the executive suite when she heard Brendan chuckle, not knowing she was just around the corner. "Let's start the cuts with janitorial," he said. "Low risk, high optics. We make it look like a realignment. Clean house, literally." Laughter followed. That same night, she received the notice in her locker. Her position was being terminated, effective Friday. 1 week severance. No reason provided. She didn't cry. Didn't flinch. Just stood in the alley behind the building, staring at the fading skyline. Austin's summer heat pressed against her skin, but she didn't feel it. They'd done it. Fired her like they fired Evelyn. Like she was nothing. But this time, they fired the wrong one. She texted Luis, "Boardroom. Friday. 6 p.m., I need in." He replied with a thumbs up. That meant yes. Talia opened her locker, removed the sealed manila folder marked Initiate, and slid it into her bag under a stack of microfiber rags. She still had her badge. Luis made sure of that. The next 3 nights, she cleaned like normal. No one noticed her glancing at her phone. No one saw the emails she sent. No one saw the storm building in the quiet. Because they never saw her. And that was their biggest mistake. Talia's locker still smelled like ammonia and floor wax when she opened it late Thursday night, just like it always did. Same row of battered mop handles stacked neatly beside the door. Same dented water jug tucked into the bottom shelf. Same fraying roll of extra gloves and old earbuds coiled like a habit. But tonight, something was different. Folded crisply atop the microfiber rag sat an official-looking envelope, one she hadn't left there. Her name printed in black ink across the front, Monroe, T. She didn't need to open it to know. She opened it anyway. The words were clinical, flat, devoid of punctuation beyond what legal protocol required. Effective this Friday, your employment with Novacore Systems will be terminated as part of a broader restructuring initiative. You will receive 1 week of severance and a final paycheck. No warning. No conversation. Just like they had done to Evelyn. And just like that, they thought they could erase her. Talia stared at the words for a full minute, unmoving. Not angry. Not panicked. Just still. She folded the letter and slid it into her back pocket like it was just another receipt. Then she shut the locker, locked it quietly, and walked out into the empty corridor like nothing had changed. But inside her, everything had shifted. They'd fired her. Not just a janitor. Not just background noise. They'd fired her, the woman with 11.6% of the shareholder vote, the one who had tracked Brendan Kessler's every expense, every backroom decision, every offshore vendor who billed the company for retreats in Turks and Caicos disguised as strategic alignment meetings. The woman who had built a proxy army out of people the board had forgotten. People like Evelyn. That night, Talia didn't go home. She took the elevator up to the 21st floor, CEO territory. Lights off, blinds drawn. But she had access. Luis had made sure of that. She stood outside the boardroom and just listened for a moment. Silence. She walked to the far corner of the lounge where no security cameras reached and took out her phone. One by one, she began sending emails. Subject, urgent, time to move. To Dr. Lena Chow. To Jorge Fields. To Rhonda Bell. To 23 others who had given her their proxy shares not because she asked nicely, but because she showed them the truth. The body of the email was short and surgical. Board meeting. Friday, 6 p.m. Materials attached. We move now. Attached were the receipts. All of them. The flight logs. The dummy shell company registered in Nevada. The morale reports HR tried to bury. Kessler's internal memo outlining the non-essential workforce purge, highlighted in red where he wrote start with night ops. No optics risk. She had the vote. She had the proof. Now she had the moment. By 3 a.m., every file had been sent, every message delivered. She didn't sleep. She didn't eat. She went back to cleaning, just like normal. If anyone noticed her pacing quicker through the hallways, checking her phone more often, lingering just a little longer near the executive suite, it didn't matter. No one ever looked at her long enough to ask. Friday arrived hot and ruthless. The Texas sun baked the glass facade of NovaCore until it shimmered like it was trying to hide something. But nothing could hide what was coming. At 5:55 p.m., Talia stepped off the freight elevator on the top floor. She wasn't wearing her uniform. She wore a fitted black blazer, dark jeans, and a simple white shirt. Her badge still worked. She walked past the assistant's desk without hesitation. Inside the boardroom, Brendan Kessler was mid-joke, nursing a drink as the board laughed a little too loudly. "I'm telling you," he said, raising his glass, "sometimes you have to cut from the bottom to make the top float. Dead weight doesn't drive innovation." And then he saw her. For a second, he didn't react. Just blinked. Then smirked like he thought she was lost. "Excuse me, miss, this is a private meeting." "I'm aware," Talia said calmly, placing a thick folder on the center of the glass table. "I'm not here as staff. I'm here as a shareholder. And I'm submitting a formal motion for removal under Article 7, Section B." The room went silent. Mendez, the gray-haired board member from legal, leaned forward. "She's within her rights," he said, thumbing through the documents. "Her paperwork's in order." Another board member glanced at his phone and nodded. "She sent me everything. I've read it twice." Brendan's face lost color as one by one, hands went up. "She's got my proxy. And mine. I signed this morning." Brendan stood abruptly. "This is a stunt. She's a janitor." "What, she's going to lead the company in a mop bucket?" Talia didn't flinch. "I clean what gets dirty, and right now, that includes this board." Someone choked back a laugh. "You don't have the authority," Brendan snapped. Talia opened the folder again, slid forward a copy of the bylaws with highlighted sections. "I hold 11.6% of the vote. Enough to call for a formal board review. Everything is documented. Every expense, every offshore transfer, every morale report you falsified. It's all in there." Mendez tapped the table. "She's not wrong. I reviewed the files myself." Brendan's voice rose. "This is ridiculous. We're seriously considering taking directives from someone who mops floors?" I'm not giving directives, Talia said. I'm calling a vote. If the board would like to proceed. There was no shouting. No debate. Just the slow, unsettling sound of papers turning and eyes narrowing. A younger board member, Chandra Patel, spoke first. We've had concerns, Brendan. Layoffs that made no sense. Culture decay. Staff turnover through the roof. And now, this. She looked at him sharply. I'm voting yes. Then Mendez. Then 2 more. Then 4. Brendan slammed his glass down. I've made this company profitable again. I survived Q4 of 2023 when we were bleeding money. No, Mendez cut in. You survived it by bleeding people. Talia remained standing. Calm. Collected. Not smiling. Just tired. I'm not here for applause. I'm here to protect the people who build this place. My mother gave 26 years to Novacor. You erased her like she was a line item. I won't let you do it again. Brendan was still standing when the vote passed. Still talking when the board voted him out. Still hurling threats when security escorted him from the room. But Talia didn't look at him again. Her job was done. By the next morning, an internal memo was circulated, Novacor board to form temporary oversight committee pending CEO transition. Her name wasn't on it. She didn't want it to be. But everyone knew who forced the change. And at 9 p.m. that night, Talia Monroe walked through the front doors of Novacor wearing her old uniform, gray shirt, black work pants, boots polished sharp. She clocked in. Pushed her mop bucket forward like she always did. But now, heads turned. Marisol from the cafeteria gave her a 2-finger salute. Luis held the elevator and mock whispered, "Ma'am, I believe your boardroom awaits." She rolled her eyes. Smiled. When she passed the executive glass, she didn't stop to look in. She didn't need to. The system she'd cleaned was already changing. Because silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. And this time, the woman no one saw coming made sure they'd never forget her name. The next night, just before 9 p.m., the glass doors of Novacor Systems slid open with a quiet whoosh, and Talia Monroe stepped inside like she had for the past 14 months, mop bucket in hand, uniform pressed, boots clean, her name tag pinned exactly where it had always been. But everything had changed. The same badge that once went unnoticed now unlocked more than just side doors. The same elevator that once skipped her floor now welcomed her with nods from people who never bothered to look up before. The building felt different. Not louder. Not busier. Just more aware. She didn't smile as she entered. That wasn't her way. But her shoulders were square, her pace steady, and every step echoed like punctuation in a story no one thought she was writing. Brendan Kessler's name was already scraped from the executive directory in the lobby. The glass plaque that once displayed his title, Chief Executive Officer, was bare, waiting. But Talia didn't stop to look at it. She didn't need to see his name vanish. She'd made sure it meant something when it did. Upstairs, the board had wasted no time. In the hours following her presentation, they had voted not only to remove Kessler but also to establish a temporary executive committee to oversee internal reforms. Mendez had taken the lead on drafting the structure. Chandra Patel recommended adding someone from operations. But it was Talia who insisted the committee include people who were always seen as support staff. Put cafeteria, maintenance, and junior engineering on that board, she told them. Not because it looks good. Because it's overdue. They listened. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe out of shock. Maybe because for the first time, someone reminded them that leadership isn't about corner offices, it's about who shows up when the dust settles. They named the interim committee the Core, and it met that Saturday morning. On the docket, canceling the executive cocktail retreats, pausing all pending layoffs, initiating third-party audits of vendor contracts, and most importantly, restructuring the company's wellness and severance programs. The first motion passed was a unanimous decision to reallocate the annual Executive Development Fund, a bloated $2.3 million budget once used for resorts, speakers, and wine, to a new employee health initiative. One board member had the nerve to ask what it should be called. Mendez looked at Talia. "The Evelyn Initiative," she said without hesitation. "It's time my mother's name meant more to this place than a paycheck and a locked locker." The room went quiet. Then Mendez nodded. "Done." By Monday morning, every employee at Novacor received an internal memo. A new chapter begins. The Evelyn Initiative will serve as a permanent employee care and development program, offering mental health support, emergency medical funds, and retraining grants. Because no one who builds this company should be left behind when life gets hard. Attached was a message from the board, but it wasn't signed by suits or titles. It was signed by first names: Rhonda, Jorge, Lena, Malik from security, even Marisol from the cafeteria. Names that once sat in shadows were now in bold. Names that, for the first time, were heard. But Talia didn't sign it. She declined the invitation to join the executive team. Mendez had offered her an operations advisory position with stock options, a corner office on the 20th floor, and a six-figure salary. "It's yours," he said, "if you want it." Talia looked him straight in the eye. "I didn't do this to sit in a different seat," she replied. "I did it to make sure the people in every seat finally matter." He didn't push. He didn't need to. That night, she walked back in at 9 p.m. again. Same mop. Same path. But this time, Marisol spotted her and called out from the elevator, "Girl, you serious right now?" Talia raised an eyebrow. "They still pay me by the hour." Luis, leaning at the security desk with a fresh tie on, saluted her as she passed. "Evening, CEO Slayer," he teased. "Don't gas me up, Luis," she said, smirking. But the truth was, she felt something different inside, like gravity had shifted. Not because people were looking now, but because they had finally seen. In the days that followed, Novacor transformed quietly. It wasn't flashy. There were no press releases, no viral videos. But the office changed in the details. The janitorial schedule was shifted to allow for more flexible hours. Cafeteria staff now had voting representatives on monthly planning meetings. Engineers from marginalized teams were invited to speak during strategy sessions, not as guests, but as contributors. Most of all, people stopped looking through each other. They paused. They greeted. They learned names. It wasn't perfect. But it was starting. The Evelyn Initiative launched its first wellness stipend that month. Over 300 employees applied for child care assistance, elder care stipends, therapy sessions. The stories that came back were gut-wrenching, stories of single moms who worked double shifts and missed checkups, sons who had skipped college to help their parents, engineers who had hidden their depression behind flawless code. Talia read each one with the same patience she once used to wipe down glass walls no one ever touched. These weren't just names. They were lives her mother would have fought for. And now, Talia made sure they were no longer invisible. She never went public. She never told her story on a podcast. She never gave interviews or posed for photo ops. When a regional paper reached out, Mendez asked if she'd be open to a profile. She told him, "You can tell them about the change. Just don't put my face on it. It's not about me." He respected that. One night, weeks after the vote, she found herself back on the rooftop parking lot with Luis. It was after 2 a.m., Austin's skyline blinking gently in the distance, a quiet breeze pushing the heat away. "You could be anywhere now," Luis said, handing her a foam cup of vending machine coffee. "Why are you still here?" She stared out over the city for a long moment. "Because someone has to keep watching," she said. "And they'll stop looking once the headlines fade." "I won't." He sipped his coffee. "You ever gonna take that badge off?" She shook her head. "Nah. I earned this one." Before she left that night, She took one slow walk through the executive floor. Not to clean. Just to look. The office lights were dimmed, the glass walls catching bits of city light. She paused near the empty CEO office, Brendan's old kingdom, now gutted, waiting. She stepped inside, not to claim it, just to stand in it. Just to feel what power used to look like. Then she turned around and walked back out. Quiet. Unassuming. Like always. The mop bucket waited by the elevator. And the woman no one saw coming had already changed the story. Because real power doesn't beg for titles or promotions. It doesn't sit behind glass or dress in designer. Real power pushes through doors no one opens for you, cleans the floor beneath corrupt feet, then rewrites the rules without ever raising its voice. If anyone ever calls a janitor dead weight again, she had told the board, her voice like steel, you better believe they'll be next. And they believed her. Sometimes, the strongest people in the room are the ones no one notices. The ones who enter through the back door, who work while others sleep, who are dismissed with a single glance or called by a name that isn't theirs. People like Talia Monroe, the quiet, overlooked, underestimated, often carry a strength that doesn't demand attention, but quietly transforms everything around it. Her story isn't just fiction. It's a mirror of what happens every day in workplaces across America. Injustice rarely arrives loudly. It comes in subtle exclusions, casual disrespect, unequal opportunities, and systems designed to keep certain people at the bottom. But what Talia teaches us is this: silence is not surrender. Watching is not weakness. And dignity doesn't disappear just because someone refuses to see it. Talia didn't storm in demanding power. She earned it in the shadows. She built it piece by piece, through discipline, intelligence, and the fierce belief that the people who built the foundation of any company, any community, deserve to be valued, not discarded. She didn't seek revenge. She sought justice. And she didn't just fight for herself, she fought for the legacy of her mother, for every unseen worker, and for a future where no one would be erased just because their job wasn't glamorous. Here's the lesson. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside, don't forget that your story isn't over. The world may not always acknowledge your worth, but that doesn't make it any less real. Keep showing up. Keep observing. Keep learning. And when your moment comes, speak with purpose, act with clarity, and never doubt the impact one voice can have. And if you're in a position of power, ask yourself, who am I not seeing? Because the person you pass by today may be the one who changes everything tomorrow. To our listeners and viewers, thank you for taking the time to sit with this story. At U.S. Justice Story, we believe in honoring the overlooked, and standing with the unheard, and in shining a light on the stories that challenge power and uplift dignity. Your support means the world to us, and we hope you leave this story not just inspired, but activated. Until next time, keep believing in justice. Keep standing up for what's right. And remember, real power doesn't come from a title. It comes from the courage to act when no one else will.